A week ago today, I went off on the Phoenix Suns. And check out that show. I encourage you to see the times where I continuously, with head first, go after this organization. And I will continue to do so. I couldn't care less. I had someone reach out to me and say, it's obviously like a Kevin Durant stan, and go after me and just be like, sometimes you're delusional and sometimes you make sense. Which, sure, I guess I can be delusional at times. Who can't be? But I think the point in there I made to someone was, listen, man, I'm just not loyal to Kevin Durant, to the Suns, to a player, whoever it is. I have no interest. Devin Booker can get it. Matt Ishbia can get it. I will be going after all of them. Because at the end of the day, the only thing I care about is winning. And so a week ago today, I ripped the Kevin Durant trade a new one. I ripped Jalen Green coming to the Suns. I ripped the idea of bringing in multiple players who I felt like were not going to fit here. I liked Dillon Brooks. Do I like Dillon Brooks as a part of the main caveat to a Kevin Durant trade? No. But a week later, I have to give credit where it's due. There's obviously an incomplete grade for everyone right now when it comes to the NBA offseason. The offseason is technically like a week old. Maybe a little bit more than that. I'm willing to give the Phoenix Suns an incomplete grade for now, just like everyone else. Last week it would have been a fail. But what the Suns did over the NBA draft Wednesday through Thursday and then into today prepping for free agency, I've got to be completely honest with you. If we were grading the offseason up until now, which is not fair, we have to get through the rest of the offseason, but if we were, the Suns would get an A. Their NBA draft was so flawless and so well done that it would be pretty unfair to give them anything less than an A. Kaman Malawach was my number one guy for the Phoenix Suns. He is a Phoenix Sun now. Defensively, he's an anchor. He's going to stay with guys regardless of the size. 1 through 5, he's going to be able to guard. A lob threat, incredibly raw. And you pair that with the fact that he will have Mark Williams, a guy that a lot of people kind of have comped Kaman Malawach to. And so Mark Williams bringing him here for, let's call it, next to nothing. It was the 29th overall pick and another first-round pick that will be so far down the line, you will forget that it was even a Suns pick. Not to mention, it's the least favorable pick of like 5 other teams. You're able to go get Rasheer Fleming, Kobe Brea. Rasheer Fleming probably should have been a top 20 pick. Kobe Brea, the best shooter in the draft, but still probably a two-way guy. I couldn't ask for much better from the Phoenix Suns. Go back to a week ago today and see if I'm just hyping up this team for no reason. I ripped the trade apart last week. Shame on me. I should have given it more time. But I wanted a real, honest-to-God reaction to it. And that brings me to today. As much as I love what the Phoenix Suns have done so far, there are some moves that I know some people are for that I think I'm a little against. Let me just start by saying this. I do not want to come off as a Chris Paul hater. I love what Chris Paul did for the Phoenix Suns. But I'm not so sure I want him here. Now, I'll get to that in just a second. What was kind of interesting about some of the former Suns players making the rounds last night was this. Like last night, DeAndre Ayton gets bought out. I wonder who on this show has continuously said DeAndre Ayton had zero trade value when he was traded. The problem with the DeAndre Ayton trade was not trading him a year later. DeAndre Ayton has no interest in playing basketball outside of just making money, so that's why he does it. But Ayton is the perfect encapsulation of DeAndre Ayton is this. He once got snowed into his house for a Portland Trailblazers game. It's very clear what DeAndre Ayton is. Very talented guy with little motive to want to dominate. He'll come into the first press conference of the team that picks him up. He'll say he's dominating. He'll say he's a max player. All this nonsense. And then they'll eventually run him out of town too, because he overstays his welcome. So everyone that was trying to tell me that the Suns could have gotten more for DeAndre Ayton, not exactly what they got back, you're wrong. They were supposed to trade him a year earlier. And the reasoning once again, why I was right about DeAndre Ayton, because after 1 year, the Trailblazers drafted his replacement. And after 2 years, they said, we can't do it anymore. And they flat out bought him out. Yeah, no freaking crap. And so that brings me to Chris Paul. I really like Chris Paul. I don't want to come off as a Chris Paul hater. But why can't I just be thankful for what Chris Paul did for this organization? Shake his hand, call him I don't know if I would call him an all-time Sun great or a Suns legend. He wasn't here for that long. But why can't I call him one of the most favorable Suns in Suns history? Be thankful what he did for the organization. And then just be like, okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you. You're going to retire. You're going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame guy. Why do I have to bring him back? I made this analogy last week, guys. I had this girlfriend once when I was 19. And that deeper into that story, I can't believe I dated that girl for that long, but that's just what happens, right? You stay in this relationship with someone, and at first it's really good, and halfway through, you're like, I think we're peaking here, and then towards the end of that relationship, you're ready to go your separate ways. But you break up, and it sucks, and heartbreak, and you remember only the good times with that person. And then you get back together with them. And the first 2 weeks are fun, the nostalgia, you guys really missed each other. And then you promised everything that ruined the relationship last time wouldn't ruin the relationship this time. And then everything starts to come back. Everything starts to come back. All the things that annoyed you, and you want to break up again. I don't want to do that with Chris Paul. I don't want to do that. Chris Paul served his purpose here. They should have won a championship. They didn't. But he was a leader. He taught the young guys some things that they probably needed to learn. Mid-range assassin, the point GAWD, God. Who doesn't love Chris Paul? I do. But the main reason why we got rid of Chris Paul the first time was because of his inability to play with some pace. Chris Paul at 38 already played with a relaxed style of basketball. Imagine Chris Paul at 40. You don't get better with age that late in your career. You get worse. You get slower. You get less flat-footed, especially defensively. I know this is not going to be a popular take, but can I just say I'd rather have Tyus Jones or Colin Gillespie or Cam Payne, who's also a free agent, run the backup duties for the guard position than Chris Paul? I like Chris Paul. He's a good player. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I am very thankful what he did here in his time in Phoenix. But I don't really want to have to deal with 40-year-old Chris Paul getting harassed in the backcourt, struggling to get the offense going because he plays with such a relaxed pace. The Suns need to play faster, and the Suns need to get younger. They've got Royce O'Neal for leadership, or Grayson Allen, or Devin Booker. I'm not that interested in Chris Paul's leadership to where I think it's going to change the outcome of Suns games or Suns history. I like Chris. Good player. If he comes here, I will welcome it. And I think for the most part, it'll be fine. But is Chris Paul going to be okay with taking a backseat to Colin Gillespie? Booker and Jalen Green will start. Colin Gillespie will get point guard duties off the bench. I don't want Chris Paul taking away minutes from Colin Gillespie. I like Colin Gillespie. He was a good player for the Suns this year. Coach Bud, I think, was just trying to get fired and had no interest in playing him. So, and here's another thing, guys. Chris is probably a vet minimum guy. Not to mention, he's mentioned he wanted to play closer to home, and that would be LA. And the Clippers also want him here, so I don't think he's going to be here anyways. But this Suns team needs to get younger. They need to play with more pace. That's why we shoved Chris Paul out the door in the first place. Because we thought we were getting a fast-paced star in Bradley Beal. We didn't. We ate our words on that, but it was time to move on from Chris Paul. Chris Paul runs his course. Every team that has Chris Paul loves him at first, but towards the end is like, we're good. Now, he does well with young players. He's a good dude, good leader. I lived the Chris Paul experience. I'm very thankful for what Chris Paul did. He is an all-time probably Phoenix Sun. However, I don't think I want to get back together with my ex-girlfriend. I've done that before. It doesn't work out. All the things that were bad to break up the relationship came to fruition after you got back together. I think I'm ready to leave Chris Paul in the past. I'd rather have Colin Gillespie. I'd rather have free agent campaign. I'd rather have Tyus Jones run the show. And just so we're clear, the reasoning why I'm not getting super deep into the Phoenix Suns free agency is because they have no money. And as I've mentioned before on this show, despite numerous reports, I don't know what they're going to do with Bradley Beal. I keep mentioning this to you guys. I don't think there's a world where Bradley Beal is gone. I can't see it. It doesn't make any sense. I would not give up draft capital just to get off of Bradley Beal. I would just sit his ass on the bench. He can come in, play 15, 18 minutes a night, score a bit, but I'm not giving up assets just because I don't want him here. I don't understand that line of thinking. The Suns don't have any money, and free agency because of the new CBA isn't great. However, what I will say is the Suns are going to get some vet minimum guys. They have 2 roster spots available if Kobe Bryant signs a two-way, which probably he will do. I'm done caring about minimum guys. We've talked about this before. Do you remember the last 2 years of getting minimum players? We thought we were getting steals, and at the end of the day, we got what we paid for, minimum players. So I hope they can bring in a campaign. I hope they can bring in a Larry Nance Jr. I really hope they can bring in a Malcolm Brogdon. But as far as difference makers in free agency, there's like a few of those guys, and those guys are going to get overpaid elsewhere. The Suns are not going to have the assets to do so. So I think it's going to be a fairly quiet free agency. I think the Suns might have a trade or two up their sleeve, but I think most of the heavy lifting is done. And again, I want to say this one more time. If Chris Paul comes here, I will welcome him with open arms. I just don't think it's the best use of, I don't want to say assets because you're not really doing anything, but I don't think it's the best use of your time to bring Chris Paul in here. Maybe there is a leadership factor. Maybe he does make Mark Williams and Malawach better players. At this stage in his career, I think most of that has gone out the window.